I want to talk about Trudy, except that I keep just sitting here and listening to the birds. And the crows, which I guess are technically birds. So I like talking about Trudy because it's actually probably the best way of telling our origin story. People want to know how we got started, and then, we end up telling the story. They end up telling the story about how I used to be the chief technology officer for a company based in Amsterdam. We were building tools for refugee populations, and then blah, blah, blah. But actually, probably a more authentic and truthful telling of that story would be in the late 1980s. Trudy had heard, she doesn't like politics, so she didn't know where she heard the phrase, but she had heard 1,000 points of light. And what it was actually is George H.W. Bush talking about this sort of like this ecosystem of community organizations, working together. She didn't know that, actually. She heard it, and she just has got a missing bit for politics. She just doesn't care, which I kind of adore about her.
I've spoken of 1,000 points of light, of all the community organizations that are spread like stars throughout the nation doing good. We will work hand in hand, encouraging, sometimes leading, sometimes being led, rewarding. We will work on this in the White House, in the cabinet agencies. I will go to the people and the programs that are the brighter points of light, and I'll ask every member of my government to become involved. The old ideas are new again because they're not old. They are timeless. Duty, sacrifice, commitment, and a patriotism that finds its expression in taking part and pitching in.
She took trash to the curb, and then she stood there, and she thought about the 1,000 points of light, which in her imagining was all of these neighbors. What she could see in her mind's eye were neighbors working together, like having, her dad has a PhD in horticulture. So for her, it's very natural to assume that people would cultivate sort of complementary little gardens, and they would help each other. And it would extend to, somebody who is good and trusted at childcare would actually help in that regard. And someone who's good with, amateur automotive repair would help the neighbors. So for her, that's the 1,000 points of light. And what she saw in her mind's eye was the illumination of these lamps, if you will, these lights, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, this little candle of faith that it would extend into sort of this overlapping rings of halos, if you will. And she has held true to that vision ever since the late 1980s. It's not to say that she didn't have it before, but she had a language for it. And then she did her best to really cultivate that spirit. And what she got for her as punishment, basically, is she had one person after another who took advantage of her kindness and generosity and hospitality for their exclusive benefit. And this taught her some hard lessons about being a steward of that little light. That song is a good one. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Hold it under a bush. No, I'm going to let it shine. But there's a whole other thing. Let's make sure that we're not having that light extinguished by sort of this self-centered thing that people do. Let's be stewards of that light. And she had to learn that along the way, and it's been hard. It's been hard because she's had people in her life who don't have her faith. They don't have her trust. They just think she's naive. And that's true. Maybe there is a little bit of naivete. That's kind of actually part of one of her more adorable qualities, is that she really genuinely sees the potential for good in people, and they betray themselves, actually. But if it wasn't for her spirit of hospitality and that little light, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing now. She could see, we met in the context of a kind of an odd collaboration that is really not related to what we're doing now, but she could see what I was trying to do. At the time, I was working for a company in Amsterdam. I was the chief technology officer, and that company was becoming insolvent. And I could see that I needed to redefine the organizational dynamic so I don't have to lay my people off. So I proposed to the CEO that we can turn the engineering team into a profit center. She said no, but by then the company was all but insolvent anyway. She hadn't paid people for months. People had left. So we brought those people in and we launched 214 Alpha, and she's my co-founder, and that's great. And actually, because of that authentic spirit of hospitality and that light of hers, that's what helped us bring forward Ruth. Ruth has been holding dear to her heart this idea that she could really bring forward that light that she shared with her deceased husband Keith, and she and had to also go through the grief of his loss, which almost broke her. And as her friend, I met her in 2020, and we said let's work together. So we said that we're going to do an anti-fragile playbook, which will demonstrate her sort of intuition for the different forms of what we call soft capital. I won't go through the whole thing again because I talk about it, but how do they reconcile to the ledger to help people hold true to their values of stewardship? And that gave birth to Bene SA, which is basically extending the same anti-fragile model for stewardship into land stewardship and community living. And that's how I got to know Terra Global last year. Terra Global licenses what we do, and it's called Halo Communities. And as I've shared before, people are so enamored by the halo, they don't think much about the houses, which is actually the right mindset. It doesn't mean the houses are not important, but they're not like narcissistically important. Like, you don't have to fetishize turning your house into a dentist office as people do. Like, maybe think a little bit about how your kitchen can serve as a place where other people can bring their flame forward and they can share the little candles, which is what Trudy does. She has a little humble kitchen table. It's actually, the frame of it is something her dad had rescued a long time ago. It's an old ice cream parlor table, and she put a tabletop on it. She painted it herself, and it's wonky or whatever, but that's actually where the magic happens. And Ruth has always entertained this idea of kitchen table capitalism. Kitchen table capitalism being this place where the mom and the abuela are rubbing two nickels together and trying to figure out how to make magic happen after the kids go to bed. That's what keeps the lights going through uncertainty. Bro, chill. And so that's why when we met Cheryl Bassett, who's president of Terra Global, she's like, y'all, I've got this thing. She didn't say y'all, but now she does, because it's a little bit infectious. In fact, last week she said all y'all, but that's just between you and me. She said, y'all, we've got this thing, this kitchen table conversations, and it's rooted, this light of faith, this light of love I have here close to my heart is a reflection of the lessons I learned from my sons. And it's called Kitchen Table Conversations. Like, y'all, to me, that's it all coming together. And so that's why things are really coming together for us in a way that transcends the purchasing power of money. That's what's happening. And it's because of that little light, this little light of mine. I'm going to let it shine. And we got to steward it too. You get to feel the sharpness of my elbows if you decide you're going to encroach upon the little candle of faith that Trudy has, because that's my job. And likewise, I believe in the light that you have close to your heart. I think sometimes people feel heartbroken, and that it inspires them to lash out at others because they feel like they've been betrayed by life or circumstances. But it is never too late to redeem that little thing that you've got, that belief that we could do things differently. And that happens literally at the kitchen table. And you know why? Because there's no such thing as a person who stays mad while eating a delicious sandwich that's made by grandma, which is like one of my favorite things to say.